Hello, beautiful souls. I feel like I feel like I'd almost say that like you could say it in the airy like love and light ways, like hello, beautiful souls, and then like you could totally go more like oh, who's the words like hello, beautiful souls? Was that Hannibal? I think it's Hannibal. That's horrible. Hello, beautiful souls. Do you have some fava beans? Like something like that. Anyways, I'm really amused because especially catching on like all of you coming in on that Leo video, right? I definitely I was not surprised in a way, even though it was a pleasant surprise that a lot of people came in while I was doing a Leo video because my intuition of this beautiful Scorpio season and November and then we're heading into Sag energy was like there's definitely Leo energy here. I'm not seeing a lot in the astrology. There's not really the Leo Aquarius axis, but there is definitely Leo energy. Now there are trines and various things that are going on, especially because the moon changes signs every few days. So there's always all signs energies in all months, but how much of it is there? And really, we're at that point where okay, if I was just to have taken a guess all by itself and not to have like looked into anything astrologically, I would not have thought there would be almost any Leo energy either in the stars and constellations or as in like the personal experience of Leo energy because like during the Lionsgate, like we had almost all Leo energy. Like it was all in there, it was all up in there, all up in there, it was all about Leo. Like which a healthy Leo loves that. Like a healthy Leo has the ability to go, I deserve this love. And then also to be able to put it down later and be like, oh, sad and squishy. I don't have the spotlight of the room right now, but that's okay because I can amuse myself and I can also go and do this other stuff. Like that's, evolved Leo energy is comfortable in times of solitude and seclusion and not being the center of the stage as well as being the center of the stage. Um, and there's varying degrees of that. Like, I'm not a person with a lot of Leo placements either in my sun or moon chart, but I do understand like the stage stuff. Like, sometimes you do it because there's a thrill in it, but you're still scared. Like you just learn how to be more comfortable with it than others. Um, but I'm definitely feeling like collectively in terms of like because I had asked at the end of that video. So for those of you who were not aware of this, like I'm gonna do a twin flame update of things going on, and part of the reason that I opened with talking about Leo stuff, aside from trying to give some time for y'all to find this new video, get out of the old video, get a snack, come back in, and be like, "Hey, what's up, Wickedly Divine Feminine?" Hmm. So in like in the Leo energy, it's funny. Like my first thought on my mind my brain when I was like, okay, what is the energy that like I've already been picking up on twin flame energy. I live twin flame energy, so I'm like always in it to some degree. But like what's the energy of this? And normally I would be in a place of like, let's think about it, let's meditate for an hour or so on it, let's just do the thing. Like let's do it right. But at this point, it's like I'm gonna put a title in and I can change it later if I want to. And that's the simple part of it, right? And that I feel like that's a part of the balance that we're like going towards energetically because we do like while we don't have a lot of Leo energy itself in the stars, there is this Leo energy that is floating around. I'm not exactly sure why. I'm still like I know a lot. I know a lot. I'm a big fat brainiac about astrology. I've never been the type of person to say I know everything, but there are definitely times when it's like one of my favorite things about astrology and even tarot and the twin flame journey is like just when you think that you know how something is going to go and more importantly why something happens so that when you see certain placements or things or stuff from people you're like okay if that person does A they're definitely going to get to the D outcome or if that person starts at D outcome one, if it's two of them, one might go back to the A outcome, or the other one might go to a J outcome. Like, once you get to a place to where you're like, I think I know how this works and I think I know why it works. Then there will be something else that happens that comes in. It could have been this 1111 portal, which is funny. Like it really should, if we think, in fact, maybe this is that energy, okay? 1111 is two justice cards, which relates to Libra. But if we look at it, okay, okay, if Libra would be like the judge and the peacekeeper, Leo would be like, how do you put it? Because it's, I mean, Leos can be judges too, but if in this scenario, it's like the Leo is the bailiff, the bodyguard, the bouncer, but also the MC. That's where my mind is a little wrapped in. It's like, okay, let's take it, let's go more medieval, especially from the sinks of like Sword in the Stone stuff. Okay, so if Libra is justice and is the judge, and is sitting there with the scales and the sword and is like, you are guilty and you are guilty and you are innocent and you are innocent and all the rest of you are guilty. Like I'm almost picturing this like Captain Hook energy from the movie Hook, with Dustin Hoffman and Robin Williams. Like, if we look at that too, so that like in the story of that, like Hook, I really liked the movie Hook because it really illustrated that it's like, yes, James Hook was the villain, but he also caused, Peter Panning, who was Peter Pan, to remember that he was Peter Pan. And like, yes, Hook should not have taken the kids. Like, that's all not okay stuff. But if we're looking at it like fictionally and taking the metaphors from it, like because of that, like there was a almost a broken relationship dynamic between a father and his children. And that's really what that movie was about, was like finding that balance. Like we go through most of our childhoods in the past few generations having to grow up far too fast. And then we get emotionally constipated, conditioned to like, don't go to that place, don't go there, don't feel those things, don't say those things, don't rock the boat, you keep your head down, don't you know gum, like like you know what I mean? Like very dry. And then like if it was not for Hook having his grudge holding and shit like that, and then deciding to come and take the kids in the moment and putting him in those situations, or to find his courage and do stuff like that, like because of that, he ended up having a better, more magical connection, not just with his kids, but with the Lost Boys, who were his basically his orphan siblings when he was growing up. You know what I mean? And then like to be able to have that magic rekindled in his life, it's like, yes, any logical, especially good parent would be like, nobody should take children. That's not a worthy reason to do it. But if we're looking at it as like in life, things often happen to where somebody is being a pirate and they end up putting us in a position that is contrasting to where we might need to be heroic, not just for ourselves, but for others. And while it would, yes, it's like be nice if you didn't do that, it's going to happen. You're never going to be able to live in a life where there is zero pirates or potatoes, where there's nobody who ever provides any contrast for you, or like you're never going to find a person or a partner or a family member who never has a shadowy moment, because we're humans. We have both sides. We have many sides, but like we're talking shadow and light at least. Like we have good side and we have, I don't want to even call it a bad side. It's a shadow side. There's a lot of complexities and also simplicities to it. But when we look at it like collectively, there are like think about third parties or karmics. Like I don't typically refer to them that much anymore. I think pirates is just a good term for anybody that even might fit into what the collective calls karmics. But like there's lots of people, parents, siblings, family members, ex-partners, current partners, and more importantly, ourselves, our own shadows and projections of times that we have done things, to where it's like we get stuck in this place of, why do bad things keep happening to me? When, like, I'm not going to be a person that's like, you should call in some bad experiences. But you know what? Actually, I probably would be that kind of person, though. Like, not in a, like if I had a close friend that I was talking to and I was comfortable with them and they were like, I'm having this problem that no matter what I do, bad things happen. I would be that kind of friend who would be like, "Well, why don't you try calling in some bad things on purpose and see if you can learn anything from that, and maybe through the learning of that, you can figure out how to stop accidentally calling in bad things." You know, and that particular conversation has not come up in that way, but it has come up in similar ways with other people, and it's like it's been beneficial. One of my favorites was like tower moments, okay? So a tower moment to me is when things fall down. Like you had something set up on a false foundation. Like either it was a codependent relationship to where if you don't placate them, shit happens, or if you speak how you really feel, things fall apart. Or if you're not constantly trying to please everybody, everybody's constantly pissed, right? And those can be false foundations, right? Or it could be belief systems. Maybe we had beliefs about the ways that something worked, but then we realize it doesn't really work that way. Like maybe we grew up with a maladaptive coping mechanism where that we didn't even know we had, where it was like we feel like all women and all men act the same, and then we can never seem to fit into that mold, and we keep running into people that bend the mold and are either not in the binary at all, or they don't fit in with the stereotypical versions of what we would expect from a woman or a man. And then there's tower moments that are like in life, right? So like I had a friend that wanted to go like clean I I keep thinking of the purple room or the purple door, but it's a different experience. Like they had like I can't remember if it was an attic or a basement or something like that, but they wanted to go and clean it and organize it. And they were telling me like, well, it just sucks because I go in and there's so much in there and I get like a fair amount of stuff done, and then I want to leave it and go do something else, and then the kids will come in and like they'll play with stuff or move things or do this stuff, and that's really frustrating, and like it's all over the place. And then when I get in here is usually the time when I know that I need to be doing things around the rest of the house, but I don't want to do those things, but I don't want to feel not productive. And like, but if I don't do this and I don't do that and I don't do this, then it feels like that'll fall apart, and the kids will get into that, and the hubby will get into this, and the friend will get into that, and it's like we got it to this point to where it was like, why don't you just let it fall down? Why don't you just let it all, like, let the kids make a mess? Let your person manage his own stuff, even if you know he's going to lose it. Let your friends be responsible for their own emotions. And we went through some beautiful conversations where effectively it got to that part to where it's like, and I know a lot of people with Leo energy, or even Aries or Sag and stuff, and like can resonate with this as to where it's like sometimes the hardest thing in getting out of codependent energy or micromanaging or controlling is to be able to let go of the notion that like it how do I put it? It's like when you let go, you're probably going to be right that they're gonna fuck it up. I don't know a better way to put it. They probably are gonna fuck it up. But you only have control over yourself. So either are you going to exhaust yourself trying to chase everybody around and being pissy and whiny about the fact that it didn't go exactly the way you wanted it when you already knew. So you're also contributing to that manifestation. You already knew they were going to do that. The story that you're telling is manifesting it. They're definitely going to do this. You've put a sweeping generalization over what everybody is going to do. And then it comes to you, especially because well, I almost thought I was in the Leo reading, but I was gonna say, especially if you have Leo placements like Leo Sun, Venus, or Mars, like you speak it, it cometh in more abundance than most people would get it. So you got to be specific about what you're asking for, so that like, and never ask for what you do not want. Always ask for what you do want, because asking for what you do want with specificity will typically exclude what you don't want. That's for everybody, but like especially if you've got Leo placements or you're feeling strong Leo energy. Um, Now, here's the thing though, like there are plenty of times when you might even get into a place of like, you know what? I know that they're gonna fuck it up, so I'm just gonna leave them to do it. They're just gonna fall or fuck it up without me or without this or without that. That's also a negative energy to go into, right? And a lot of people, I noticed a lot of people in the collective get in that energy. Either you're you're trying to be the hero. I can help, I can rescue, I can do this, and I'm all light and I'm all love, and I'm the hero. Or maybe you're like, I mean, there is protagonist and antagonist. So maybe some of you are, some of you, the stuff comes to you. Like you get provoked into situations, or you just go out to do something and then suddenly you're on a quest, and others of you may be in a place of like, you go out and you find trouble. Yeah, like me, and maybe you don't on purpose per se. Maybe you feel like somebody's in danger or something is going on, right? But the way the energy to which you play your antagonist or protagonist role, especially as a twin flame, right? Especially is really where it counts, because a lot of people confuse that the twin flame journey is about like, oh, I found my most perfect soulmate, and once we get in union, everything will be harmonious, and then we will never break up again, and they will always love me and give me all the attention that I have always wanted, and they'll be my everything, and I'll be their everything, and they'll always be completely satisfied with me. No, like, fuck that. Stop that. I'm not necessarily saying, like, if that's your real fantasy, not to go for it, but that is not what the twin flame journey is about. The twin flame journey is much more about taking those of us who had, like, weird sort of versions of that in our mind. I don't think anybody's actually that in there. But if you look at it though, like that's what a lot of people do. That's why a lot of us pine really, really badly and fawn after our twin flames when we're in separation, because we do. We have this like Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Cinderella esque sort of thing going on in our heads, whether man or the woman, or those are, and those in and out of the binary. Like it's definitely this whole happy ending. I would say happily ever after thing. But the twin flame journey is not that. Like I've talked to a lot of people that like they will call me up and they'll tell me about things. And at some point we get to this, like it's actually become a question early on that I start to ask, or there's a series of questions that can tell me like, is this person ready for the information that I could give them that could help them with their twin flame journey, both with union and what they're really supposed to be doing? And then are they really interacting with a twin flame, or is it much more likely, because I can't be the arbiter of whether it really is or really isn't, and I am just as likely to play a role for you as other people have played for me, to where I might not believe you, or I might say it's too soon. Like if people that come to me and they're like, I just met this person a few months ago, I think they're my twin flame. Or I've known this person for like, let's say 4 years or 5 years, and now I want to be in a relationship with them. I'm sure they're my twin flame. And like the higher mind, wise mind, me, wickedly divine feminine is like, I can't tell you whether that's true or not. Only you can definitively know for yourself if that's true. And if it is true, you're going to be challenged on it. You're going to have even some of the best people that should know from looking at you two and your dynamics and your story and your charts and be able to say yes. But you don't get that. That's not a part of the twin flame journey. The twin flame journey is about self-love, it's about self-respect, and it's about self-trust. So even if you feel like you get like the best reader or the best coach or the best me, I don't know, I'm just going to throw that out there, that you that you are still going to be questioned in it. And I'm one of those people, because I like to have a balance of the fanciful and the rational. That's part of my energy. I like both. I like to play in the betweens between the two. Okay. So when I'm thinking about, well, for one thing, if somebody's coming to me saying, are they my twin flame? I already know approximately where they are on their journey. And it's like, yeah, I'd probably going to get annoyed with you at some point, so I'm probably not going to work with you right now, because it's not you, it's a me thing. Like I maybe there will be a point in time when I can work with brand new twins, like brand new twins, and be like uber comfortable with it. But I'm enjoying where I am in my journey, where I'm more on the veteran side of things, and like kind of like, I don't know, like being a sort of Madam Mim like character to various people. Madam Mim meets Mary Poppins sort of thing. Um, but the The thing is, though, you got to look at your energy, okay? And I feel like before I get into what's DM doing, what's DF doing, what's DX doing, this feels like kind of that impartation for anybody that either wonders if they're on a twin flame journey or knows they're on a twin flame journey. And it's like the energy in your heart. This is kind of this Leo energy. Leo is the heart of the matter, okay? It's also connected to your solar plexus, which is your personal power, right? Your connection, your ego, your identity, your connection to the collective and to the self. Like when people talk about energetically cutting cords with someone, effectively you're pulling back in energy from your solar plexus. So that is your Leo energy, right? So, like for me, here's the example, okay? So, like when I interact with somebody that's like in the kind of Cinderella version of twin flamey stuff or soulmatey stuff, and like we can't even know whether or not it's really twin flame relationship until they do their shadow work on codependence and anxious attachment. Like for me, that's kind of where it sits. Like until you get through that shit, you're not gonna know because you're asking me a question that only you can know, and you might even get into a space where you're like, yes, I definitely know, but if you have not done the shadow work, even you are bullshitting. You know what I mean? Like that's where my rational mind goes about that, okay? But my I want to say my higher mind that is connected to my spiritual side also recognizes that one, I don't know everything. Two, it's kind of mean to be like that all the time. Like I'm not going to have much fun and nor is anyone else if I'm just going to be dry and logical like that all the time, which is my Capricorn side, and I have some Aquarius placements too. So it requires a balance in there of going, you know what? I could look at it and just like I could be the judge and be like, nope. At least not until you do your shadow work. There was no way to tell, you know. Or but I find it more pleasant and more beneficial and better karma for me also to go, okay, how would I feel? How did I feel all the times that like I tried to talk to somebody about it being a more spiritual connection or more significant at least than a typical like relationship and stuff, and they all were like, I don't know, like I think he's just an asshole, or I think you're just codependent, or this and that. And it's like, yes, like having those people on my journey was good for me. It has helped me learn self love and self trust. It has also helped me get to a place where I can love them too. And I can trust them not just based on when they're kind and when they're nice. I can trust their shadows too, because like I know both on there. And that helped me get into a place of my own kind of stuff with that. And then that's when the confirmations were there. That's when it was like, oh yeah, duh. Like I really did know it the whole time and also did not know it, could not know it because I had other layers and energies on top of the knowing, for lack of a better way to put it. Okay? So, when you're thinking about the situations around you, let's make it very twin flamey, I suppose. So like when you're thinking about your twin flame. And maybe like I suppose typically like those of you that are on here listening to me are much more likely to be in a place of like you're more aware of what's going on. You're aware of the dynamic. Your twin probably is also aware, but it could vary. There's a spectrum. So some of you may have twins that are completely, fully aware of the twin flame journey and still making choices that align much more with their shadow sides than with their light sides. You might then, and some of you might also have others that actually are aligning with their light side, but they're not aligning with you yet. And like sometimes the conversation is open and you both get why. Other times they're leaving the mystery in there because of, either because of their own shadows or because they're still concerned about yours, which really means it's about their own shadows, but it's also about triggering your shadows, about not having something come right to you as soon as you know that it's ready for you. Like, you know, and then there's others of you who your twins at least seem pretty oblivious to things. You really have to check your intuition. Like I said, this is why self trust is so fucking important. You know, like you could ask 100 people to help you interpret what it means when your DM or DF or DX does something, and they could all give you accurate information based on their own personal experiences, but you're the only one who can look at all of it and say, this is what it feels like it really means, and or this is what I decide that it is going to mean, right? And so when you're interacting with your twin, if they're in third party situations, if they're wrapped up with pirates and potatoes, if they're being a pirate or a potato, whatever thing that they're doing, you have a choice in how you look at it. Yes, it is good sometimes to just say, you know what, I'm going to go work on me for a while because I know that you got some stuff to work out. Like, it's okay sometimes to be in a place where you're like, I know when I walk away, they're going to fall on their asses. But it's not healthy to be in a place of, I'm going to walk away to make them fall on their asses. Or I'm going to walk away because I know it will hurt their feelings. Like, even if you're righteous about all that, like, think about the energy that you just started your next adventure in. Like, take it from a you and you sort of situation, okay? Like, even let's say your twin and their pirates and potatoes have been nasty. They've been nasty pirates. You know what I mean? Like, nasty secrets, getting into shadows, getting into your reputation, trying to drive you crazy on purpose and shit, and like, withholding things. Like, there are moments that that'll be you at some point. And like, ooh, this is cool. It links back to the title because it was a joke from a Leo that I know, and I don't understand the whole joke, but I just love it at this moment. Is bring your weapons to the battlefield, right? It's a jokey sort of thing, but it's also like, if you think about it in a superhero context or in a spiritual battle sort of thing, which some people say that we're in, some people say that we don't. I think it's a combination of a whole bunch of things, but you might feel, especially as this, Scorpio season. Like, I almost named this the season of magic instead of bring your weapon to the battlefield, because Scorpio is that season of magic. Like Scorpio is magic. All signs are magic, but Scorpio is magic, okay? And Scorpio, of all of the water signs, is also, like, it's funny. They're the most mature, the most wise, the most insightful. They are, however, also the water sign equivalent to Leo in terms of the sign to get called dramatic the most, and to be more likely to be the theatrical in a literal way, like actors and things like that. A lot of our POTUSes have had strong Scorpio placements, especially Scorpio Mars, interestingly enough. And it's funny, it's usually Leo and Scorpio. So here's the thing: what you cannot control, as long as you're in this collective reality, and if you are continuing to consciously choose your twin flame journey, is that you will end up in moments where it does kind of feel like a spiritual, emotional, financial battlefield. You're going to have your childhood wounds triggered. You're going to have times when people that know better than to mistreat you, and you know that you've been good to them, and they are still going to do it. You're going to have times when it feels like the collective is like all up on you, all up in your business. They got your name on your lips. They're not in their own lanes, even if you're staying in your own lane. And like, you can't control all that, right? You can't. You can manifest timelines where you don't have to observe it, or you can practice emotional constipation and pretend like you don't feel it, and be like, I don't care, I'm the boss, I'm not doing it. Like, you could go there if you want, but you also have a choice, like where you do have choices, the things you can do. You can always control how you feel about things. You can always control how you think about things. And you can always control what you decide that you want as an outcome to manifest once that said kind of battlefield-ish energy has either dissipated, or there's an opening where you can run. Or maybe maybe for some of you, you want to be in the battlefield for a minute. Maybe you're exploring your shadow side and you're like, no, I want to play in the theater, and I want to play in the battlefield, and I want to do these things, and I want to test myself, and I want to go on a quest. And like, either are fine. It's the energy that you go into it in, okay? Like, I feel like especially a lot of twins are learning right now that, like, this is a time to explore the embrace your darkness lesson, which is not be an evil dick. But it's like, okay, all humans at some point in time in our lives will experience jealousy. Are you able to sit in the energy of jealousy without actually acting upon it? And being able, like, and not just like, can you shut yourself in the corner of a room and be all like, I'm jealous, so I'm not talking to anybody? No. Can you express, you know what, I'm jealous. of this thing happening. I'm going to tell this person, I'm envious and jealous of what you're doing. You know, or yes, I do have feelings. And I know that it is not my place to tell you who to date or what to do or what not to do, but I just wanted you to know that I do feel jealous. I do feel envious or things like that. Like, can you do that? Can you do that? And like, even if the other person isn't like, I love you and I'm going to come right back to you right now, like, can you still feel good about yourself? Can you still feel good about them? Because that's where, especially on a twin flame journey, that's where your power is. That's where you manifest things. That's how you feel about yourself. That's how you get access to all the cool twin flamey superpower sort of things. Sort of. I don't know what to call it. I don't know another name for it, but like, you know, the stuff that everybody talks about that you're all like, ooh, how do I do that? You know, or even like the great irony is like pretty much everybody starts out in this place of like, ooh, how do I do the telepathy and how do I communicate with music and how do I do these things? How do I feel them? How do I call them in and do astral projection and what's the 5D and all this stuff? You're going to likely, like, if you're newer, you're going to follow your passionate focus on your twin into a space where you learn about all this stuff because you're being like we all are, a silly human and over focusing on relationships and the passing of time and social stuff. And you're going to follow that into a place to where you have learned about most of it, and it will be by the time that you are in a space to where, well, it depends, but to me, it's when you're in the healthy, balanced space of like acceptance of whatever separation sort of things are going on. But or not, but, and you still have faith about it. Like you're literally comfortable with it. You're like, man, 1 week, 5 years, 10 years, 20, whatever. Like you have faith that's coming in. You're not concerned about the time or the place or the way or the thing. You know, you can have relationships in the middle, in between if you want, that it'll all work out, that there won't be some weird like Twilighty sort of menage a trois sort of drama triangle, or maybe that there will be, and maybe you're okay with that. You're like, maybe I could write about that. You know, either way, you will understand and have much fuller access to play with the said magics and superpowers, quote unquote, when you get to that space to where you are comfortable with what is because you love yourself. You can love yourself through whatever things. You can make it through those battlefield moments, and you can go through it either as the person that's like, I'm just staying in my own lane, y'all don't need my help with the drama, or you could be as the person of like, you know what, there's a side of me that does enjoy some of the theatrics, so I'm going to explore my shadow side and see about up leveling these things, or maybe like let me see how bad I might get. Maybe there's some stuff in there that like maybe I do or say some stuff that like I didn't think I was capable of. Maybe I want to explore that stuff, or maybe I want to go at it from a space to where others pretend to be at and be like, I don't care, even if I do care, you know, or like there's a lot of stuff within the shadows that it's like the first impression I get on my mind when I say that to a lot of people is like, she wants me to be bad. And it's like, yes and no. Like, one, I'm wickedly divine feminine. Like, I am definitely a divine benevolent being. However, I'm shadow and light. We all are, but my specific medicines and teachings specifically are about shadow and light. And here's the thing, you can't have light without shadow, and you can't have shadow without light. They make each other, right? So a lot of people I see get stuck in this space to where they're trying to hold them into this like hold themselves into this perfect golden triangle of like love, light, and benevolence. Never to do no wrong, never to have a human moment, never to be dramatic, never to be selfish or stubborn or and I'm not saying those things are bad. Like those are, to be courageous is a virtue. To be patient is a virtue. To be benevolent is a virtue. They are. However, the irony is like when you're talking about benevolence versus malevolence, like malevolence is very black and white. It's all good or all bad. It's all yes or all no kind of thing. And they in malevolence it's like very strict. It's very like this is the only way that it will be. In benevolence, there is room for everybody and every experience because that is benevolent. Like you don't try to judge or push away people because of their various unique human experiences. Yes, have healthy boundaries, pull yourself away from toxic situations, give space when it is appropriate, things like that. But think about it, like even if we take it from like a dry, logical, psychological perspective, it is like you're looking to be emotionally secure and emotionally healthy and supposedly leading you into your success. You want to be in a place where you are always putting yourself first in terms of self-care and stuff like that. But then at the same time, like, well, you want interdependence with the collective. This is the funny thing. Like, there's so many memes out there that are like, you know what? Fuck other people. They hurt my feelings. And if you can't take me at my worst, you can't have me at my best. But do you see how, like, that gets us into this, like, really waffly energy of, like, being feisty and being in a fighty place and like feeling that we're really alone. So then we tend to connect and rendezvous with other people who feel really alone, and then nobody really helps each other. And everybody's got this attitude of like, if they're not giving me the attention that I want or treating me the way I deserve, blah, 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 I'm cutting them off. Or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. And like, do you feel the energy in that? Like that's not benevolent. It's actually much more. It fits into what's commonly called altruistic narcissism. Like because when we get into that space of like I'm not getting said attention that I want or expected or feel that I deserve, so I'm going to punish you. I'm going to either push you away or cut you off or find somebody else or blah 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 blah. I feel like Hotel Transylvania. Blah 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 blah. It, but it's like we get there and then we wonder, why isn't my person here? Why aren't these people liking me? Why do I not feel wonderful right now? This is what everybody told me. This is what all the memes on Facebook said. This is what those Facebook, YouTube, or not Facebook, YouTube, the YouTube tarot readers told me. Just cut them off. They're being stanky. You deserve better. Just, which I'm not saying is bad advice per se, but what I'm saying is the energy to which that advice is being given is icky. Like it's karmic. It's not pragmatic. Let's go that way. Let's go for my Capricorn side. It's not pragmatic. We are humans. We have emotions. We get angry. We have tantrums. We do that. That's why I can be in a place of being like, oh, I get it. Like, I get why you might cut everybody off. I get why you might be like, no, I want them to fall. Or, like I get it, but I don't live in that space anymore. Like to me, that is more of a malevolent space. Like it's about not getting attention. It's about somebody else getting attention that we wanted or thought we could take or things like that. It's about having an out of balance union with ourselves, because when you have union with yourself, when you have self love and self respect and self trust, you don't take most things personally because you can already see, like, you could be standing in front of somebody. Like, let's say somebody who's either insulting you, like shitting on your reputation, using your likeness, bullying you, whatever. Or maybe they're being passive aggressive with you. Maybe this is family, backhanded compliments, things like that. Like, really observe them. Like, start doing things that are almost like a little out of character for you and see if it makes any difference. Because I can almost guarantee you that anybody who's like, let's say you have a mother or an aunt or a father or somebody like that, or a sibling, and they're constantly telling you that, like, they're like, well, don't do that new thing because remember you quit on that thing before. You quit like 6 times before. Remember that you quit? You're kind of a quitter. Or maybe they won't say that you're a quitter, but they definitely talk about all the times you quit. Or maybe they talk about more of the times that you failed. Or maybe they talk, like my mom's favorite is that when I was a teenager, there I had a friend of me who I thought was a friend, but like I ended up having to call a series of my younger friends' parents because they kept getting into dangerous, like I'm talking like they were about to get into the sex trafficking rings, like not a good fucking situation. Out with a bunch of Navy dudes, like one of them got hurt, like like had somebody violate her and stuff, and like I didn't know how to get them to stop doing it. I knew their lives were at risk, so I called their parents and told them about what was going on so that they could hopefully help them. And at the time, I mean, I was 15. I did not have a whole lot of other options or access to do anything else. That's what my option was. One of them, but she held a fucking grudge and a half. She's a Taurus too, so I guess I'm not surprised about that. But she decided to start calling my mom and telling her about stuff that I was doing. Now, here's the funny thing. I'm the kind of person that it's like if she was just straight up telling her what I was doing, like just what I was doing, it'd be like, okay, I mean, ouch, but whatever. Like I wasn't no angel. I was intentionally enjoying my shadow side at that age, like consciously so. And like I wouldn't have had a problem so much if like it was saying what was happening. But I know that there was a fair amount of things added onto it that I never did, never do, and don't do. But they fit into my mother's shadow side, like her fears about things, her fears about herself or what it would mean. And like she's from the silent generation too. So like there's a whole lot of things that are completely normal and acceptable for somebody of my age in this day and age in 2021 that for her, like, oh my gosh, is she being taken over by the devil? Is it reefer madness? You know what I mean? Like, but she gets this thing in her head to where because of what that friend said, and in my mind, I'm like going, why would you trust somebody so openly deceiving or back like betraying your kid. Like when I called their parents, it was one call. I did not really want to talk to them. Half like they are the reason that the kids were in those situations in the first place. I just didn't know what other way would help prevent them from dying, or being severely violated. You know what I mean? But like that was one call. I did not shit upon them. I did not give away all their secrets, nothing. I talked about some of what was going on that felt relevant in terms of this is why you need to take this seriously with your child, right? But this friend of me of mine, like, was continuing to fill out information like regularly, like called my mom to have the chats, which also, it's funny, later on I was like, maybe they just really felt like they needed to be able to have the experience of somebody who believed them even when they were lying through their teeth or when they were doing stuff that they felt wasn't right, something like that. I don't know. I don't know because my mom would have been the perfect one in that. She's Gemini energy and she was all about that, right? So in her mind, she was feeling like I was intentionally trying to my mother, this is how she is. She was feeling like I was intentionally trying to hurt her feelings as a teenager by never being home. When the truth is, I was trying to never be home because there was always chaos there. Like we lived with her and my two aunts, and my dad was back and forth with alcohol stuff, and then there was her dad, and there was a lot of stuff, and the energy was icky. And I'm not a force me into a social kind of thing. I'm kind of a it's funny. It's like I'll do a lot of things that people will ask of me nicely, but if you try to force me to do something, even in my most benevolent times, I'll be like, I won't say I will intentionally do the opposite, but I feel that desire for sure. And as a teenager, there it was much more like rather than getting into all these fights, rather than hearing all this stuff about how mom thinks I'm doing, like she thought I was a prostitute doing like really big drugs. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I was the dare kid. Like you can ask all of my friends. They used to make fun of me because they would all do all of the heavy stuff. And I'm like, no, you'll die. Don't do that. Like, let's do something else. Let's try in coloring books. Let's go to the park. Let's do something else. And, but what I said all that to say this you might have somebody in your life who is like misrepresenting you. And they might be doing it either intentionally because they want to cover up their stuff or they don't like you or things like that. Or it might be more like my mom to where it's a projection. She's not really seeing me. And this is where I meant about like, this is what I meant about you could even play with like, change a little bit about who you are back and forth. Like, I it's funny to think about doing it intentionally because I ended up doing this over the past 22 months, but it wasn't with the intention of testing people to see if they were seeing me or not. But that's what it kind of resulted into. And in my own shadows is this it's not like it's not like my inner child like what which I typically qualify as like I want to say 11 and under for most people. It's more like my inner middle, like 12 to 15, 16, and maybe 17. Yeah, like 12 to 17-ish. And it's like, you're not seeing me. Like, think about me. These are in fact, a lot of the arguments that I had with my DM, Rudy, who is like, with all the pirates he had around him and all the ways that his first wife tortured him, it wasn't about what I was doing or my character or, and the same thing with my family and like other people. It's not that I had done things to hurt them. I mean, not that I hadn't ever done that, but like it was never a focus on something I actually did wrong to which I would have an ability to do something about it, which was my big complaint is like, you're making yourself miserable over something I never did. And if you look at me, if you get out of your damn projections for 5 minutes and see me, you're going to know exactly what was me and what wasn't me and all this. Like, I am not all light and I'm certainly not all shadow. Like, my flaws are there. They're blatantly obvious to a lot of people. But, like, so many people in this world do not see me because they haven't gone through the layers of shadow work to even see past their own damn noses. Like their projections are all they see. Like I am typically an overgiver of data, not necessarily an oversharer of like information in a gossipy way, but because of my neurodivergence, a lot of data comes in and a lot of data typically goes out. Now, I've worked on that a lot to where typically in a day-to-day conversation or if you were to call me or email me about working with me, like I don't overgive data in those situations unless the moment is appropriate. Like the social cues are there as in I've been asked to do it or I have said, "Hey, I might cabot trail for a minute. Would you like to hear what might come out of my mouth?" But there's a lot of data that goes out in that space and people usually have one of two experiences. Either they're like, whoa, that was incredible. Like, I learned a lot. I didn't quite take in all the data, but I felt the energy of it shifting and moving things. It was quite magical. And then other people are usually in a space of, I feel like I have just been sprayed with the hose from a fire truck, the hooked up to a fire hydrant, like, whoa, and that's, I like that feedback because it typically, rather in the past, I would have taken it as like, oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm too big. I'm too much, which was some of my other shadows is like, you're not seeing me and you're punishing me for shit that other people have done that like I specifically know I have not done because you told me about it before I ever did it. And so I made a thing. It became a complex with me to not do it. Right. So that was a shadow. And then the shadow of like, whenever people gave me feedback about my communication skills, I took it personally. Right? Like I took it as like there's something wrong with me. And then on the other side of that, which is what a lot of people then teach, is like when I realized it was not me, there was a space of like, well, it's them then. Now I've always looked for balance. I'm just going to give myself that credit. I am like that. That's the kind of person I am. And I like being that way. So I'm going to continue being that way. So, like, even when I was in a space of, like, it's all my DM's fault or it's all my family's fault or things like that, I'm still always in my mind looking for how did I contribute? What is mine to own in this? If nothing else, I allowed myself to participate. You know what I mean? I allowed people to be disrespectful to me. I allowed people to misrepresent me and try to build their own shisty pirate empires based on my energy, likeness, and name because I didn't want to lose certain connections or be seen to some people as a pirate myself. Like, I can look at and own a lot of those things. But now I'm in a space to where it's like, I mean, if it's somebody that I'm like geographically close to and have to be connected with them, it's more frustrating than they're like not seeing me. But I also recognize like each experience, we call in each experience as a part and parcel of the whole. So, like, as a twin flame, here's some nice magic for you. For those of you who actually are paying attention or on here or listening to things and getting stuff out of it, I feel like Professor Wickedly Divine Feminine. So, here's the thing. Let's say you're having a problem with your twin flame in terms of, not a problem, like a growth opportunity, right? That's what I've always called. My DM really likes it. Like, I don't call things problems very much anymore. I call them growth opportunities because that's really what they are. Learning opportunities, growth opportunities, opportunities to say, is this me or is that me? Like, or do I want to be a new me? So when you find yourself, like, let's say with your twin, there's a block in communication. Okay? Maybe you know what the reason is, maybe you don't. And maybe you're comfortable with that, or maybe you're still in a place of high anxiety about it. The most effective thing that you could do is go work out a different energetic kink with someone else. It could be a friend that you know that you need to let go of because they're taking up a lot of your time and energy, or maybe they're gossiping with the information that you have and using that to misrepresent you or to feel better about themselves, whatever. Maybe it's a conversation with a family member who is not seeing you, and you recognize that even though you cannot make them see you, you can make sure that you are not allowing yourself to be disrespected without being the kind of person that gets offended by every little fucking thing. Like, or you could go to a completely new space. I like to go to places and do karaoke because it's not just about the karaoke. It's like I go in and I think, who do I meet? Like, do I walk up and start a conversation with somebody that's whose energy feels good? Or do I sit down at the table in between songs with my journal and just have open body language and see who comes up to talk to me? And then, like, each of those people will typically have a similar timeline and energy to somebody else that I know, say, in a different community that's also not connected to my twin or anything like that, or and then somebody with my family, and then also the stuff that's connected to my twin. And like, this was not an intentional thing in terms of like I knew about this in the past and set out to learn about it. This is cool stuff I got to learn about along the way. And it's really nice too because I mean, tarot readings are nice, astrology readings are nice, but they really aren't, one, they're not enough on their own. Why do you think like so many people come back for them? And even like with tarot, like, I could read you the future right now, but there are so many elements in its collective reality that like it's much better to do like an overview of what might happen for the next month and to leave some things open, because otherwise, one, you could manifest anything that I tell you is like that's definitely going to happen, and it might not have happened. Maybe you didn't need that experience. Maybe that was for one half of the collective and not for you. Or maybe I was thinking about someone that I know and made a projection myself. You know what I mean? Like, it's better to give you an overview because so many elements can change, and even the reader is human. And so there's so many different factors in there that it's like, to tell you right now definitively what is going on, it could change in literally a millisecond because somebody decided to turn left instead of right. Like, I'm not even kidding. It doesn't, I don't, a lot of times I think especially veteran readers get good at being able to kind of understand that and read for the collective or read for a personal person and either communicate that or know how to trust themselves enough to be like, this is a pattern that you're definitely likely to continue experiencing for this amount of time because of where you've come from, and if nothing else, it is old momentum that will continue until you're done, until you're better at manifesting the new stuff that you want. But you twins, we twins, we can learn a lot more about a lot of things, specifically because we have the energetic connection to our twins. And one of the key ways that you can, like, it's you have to discern, is it a twin flame relationship or a codependent relationship? And if it is a twin flame relationship, do you also have the shadow of codependence that you need to work through before you can have a healthy connection with them? And do they also? Because not everybody, like, time isn't linear, so you are always matching up with your twin all the time at the same time, and also not. Like, something that you may have done a few years ago, they may be just lining up for right now, but you're still doing it at the same time and not at the same time. These are kind of higher mind running both operating systems sort of things that I'll try to find a succinct way to explain. But I know there's probably at least a few of you that understand what I'm talking about, right? So here's the thing. You're going to get a lot more done energetically, and it's healthier for you in terms of like psychology and stuff like that, to not sit around closing yourself off from the rest of the world. If you are choosing a twin flame journey, it is because you want to. Not just I'm don't go into this weird like I was chosen, like, unless you want to feel that way. Like, but like, It's not that you weren't chosen, but take it like, be empowered by it. Say, I choose my twin flame journey. It is weird. It is absurd. There are pirates on it, and potatoes, and like shadows, and battlefields, and like like Summerlands, and like it's not a comfortable soulmate relationship where we just sit here and watch movies for the rest of our lives. It's not going to be that sort of thing. It doesn't mean you'll never have those memories or those moments or those experiences. You will, and they'll be incredible, but you have to pick the whole fucking journey if you really want a happily ever after sort of scenario with your twin, because it's an adventure. You are picking the adventure. So go into it with that mindset and stop being in a space of you're like, I can't ever talk to anybody else because they remind me of them. I can't ever go anywhere because I might fall into a relationship where I can't. Stop it. Like, stop that. Fuck that shit. Ain't nobody got no time for that. Okay? Go to a place instead of, okay, I'm not getting the attention that I want from my twin. Just fucking own it. Because really, even if you are attached to the mainstream Abrahamic version of like a monogamous marriage, monogamous union, just you two fulfilling all each other's needs, which is not realistic, by the way, um, or healthy. And like, even if that's what you want, you got to think about it in a way that gives you what you want and yet helps you be in a space where you're comfortable and accepting with what you have. Okay? So let's say that your twin is in a third party situation. They've either voluntarily given a higher level commitment or they've been tricked into giving a higher level commitment. And then let's say either way, they actually, even if they're a total player or sugar mama or whatever thing you want to go towards, they could also be a very, very loyal person, or they could be trying to be better than they were before. So then you see the dynamic to where they're in with third parties for a long time, or with pirates or karmics or whatever. Like they're in there, it's they're doing their thing. But if you really were to stop and put your adult pants on and look at it and say, what am I really mad about? Like, once you get through the layers of my mama hurt me that way, and my papa hurt me this way, and my exes did this to me, and I'm still mad at my twin flame because they did something that was not nice to me. Once you get through that, and you just look at it from a basic acknowledgement of who you are, and logic and emotion, blended, balanced, etc., what you're really mad about, what you're really upset about. You're probably not even mad, but what you're upset about is you don't get to be the person right there next to them, loving on them, and getting their hugs and attention, where you get to tell everybody else, see, I was right. This is my twin flame. This is my person. This is my DM or DF or DX. And I told you so. I'm not crazy. And like, and then they love on you. A lot of you would probably still even be comfortable if it was a private, secret relationship. But I'm telling you right now, with a twin flame relationship, whether you talk about the twin flame part or not, it's very unlikely to be a private relationship, because a lot of twin flames end up with some sort of like, it like the healing of the concern about what other people think. It usually comes from like, your twin flame, and you might be from separate cultures or separate countries, or it might be separate social cultures, even if you're from the same, like, I almost wanted to say DNA culture, but that's not quite it. I'm trying to think of an appropriate word. I don't know. Like social culture, like, your person might have grown up with pirates, or maybe you grew up with potatoes. And like, so it's like you're both worried about what will this person think, or I don't want to abandon them, or what's going on with this and that, and things over here and things over there. And like, if you're in a twin flame dynamic, it's very likely that you're both going to have to find some sort of balance between telling everybody else to fuck off and then on the other side recognizing they're humans and not cutting people off and not being a pirate about it, stuff like that. You know, and that's weird. There's a car here. Anyways, so there's a lot of things to learn along the way that you can learn when you get out of, I want to say, let's call it hyper focus, okay? When you get out of hyper focus, when you get out of being hyper vigilant, when you heal that anxious attachment, and you stop worrying about will people like me if I go out and do something. Go out, get into the community, volunteer. You don't like people so much, volunteer with animals. You know, like you're going to have different experiences when you are living your life. And no, I'm like, yes, I do also mean get into business and stuff. Do your your YouTube businesses and things like that. But I mean more than that. Like go out for fun. Go out and I know I'm not talking about go out and party and do all this stuff. I mean go out for the pleasure of it, whatever that means for you. You know, explore different communities. Check out some spiritual ones. Check out some political ones. Check out some kinky ones. Check out some ones that help you be a better parent. And you don't have to be a parent already. You could go take parenting classes, learn to be a good and or better parent before you have children too. So like, you know, there are different things you could do. Go consider an education. You don't necessarily have to get into college to educate yourself thoroughly about something. And there are a lot of free college courses and programs available online. You know what I mean? Like, just by doing something different, by shifting the energy, clean your house and then go for a walk in a new park that you've never been to. Whatever it is, you might have a strange conversation with a random person who pulled in from 3 states away and wanted to know where the local post office is. And in that conversation, they may tell you about somebody that they met 1 state away who had your name. Or they might talk about a name that maybe it's your DM or your DF or your DX, right? Like maybe there's some sort of information that could be communicated to you that would not be communicated to you in a 3D direct sense. There might be a whole number of factors going on, and the very likelihood is if you have a block with your twin flame, either a literal no contact communication block, or just in the sense that, like, even if you can communicate, it's blocked. There's pirates and potatoes and pitfalls and traps and weird things like that. Like, even with that, like, you can still get plenty of information with and without asking for it by just going out and living your life and without some big agenda of it. You don't have, you can do it on purpose, but it's a lot more fun to me. It's a lot more fun when I go out and my only agenda is to have a good time for me for a little while, and all of this information comes to me while I just so happen to be having a good time loving myself. That's even more magical than trying to go out somewhere and being like, okay, I'm going to see the signs. I'm going to hear the things. I'm going to get the clarity. Like, it's a lot more pleasantly surprising to not worry about when I get it, who it comes from, how it comes to me, and to know I don't have to attach myself to any of the experiences that I go out and have. And I can if I want, but I don't have to. Don't have to stay there. Don't have to do it. And that, like, doing all that got me to the place to where I was able to release most of the majority of the rest of my codependent connections and create a whole crap ton of space for me, for one thing, and for new connections that I don't have to manage, where I don't have to baby people. I don't have to rescue. I don't have to be the center hub of the wheel. I'm neither the most mature or the most immature, like, you know, things like that. Balance, interdependence. And through doing that, like, it opened up a ton more space for one, for me to be able to remain in my benevolent balance while also interacting with and enjoying the out of balance space that my DM has been in his space, and to love it anyways. You know, and that opens up space for me to do work like this. You know what I mean? To and to get through those feelings, that pulls off years of shadows. And like I would not have been able to do any of that and be sitting here and still telling the tale had I not been like, you know what, I am not going to be one of those people that sits here and all I ever do is think about my twin flame. Like, I knew the thoughts were going to come in there anyways. I was with him for 15 years and interacted for 20. So, like, you know, we're going on year 21 right now. So, it's definitely understandable that I would think about him a lot. We have 2 kids together. He has an older daughter who I consider my bonus daughter, even though she hates me. Like, but, like, the there is a lot of connections and there was a lot of family and a lot of pull. My family goes and pulls him in. His family goes and pulls me in. Like, it's all there. It's a circus. It's a freaking circus with a pirate ship, and it's like it literally is like Neverland from Hook. You know, in one space it's snowing, another place it's always sunny, another like weird things running around that you can skateboard sail on, like, and there's kids running around that really should have some adult supervision. There's adults that should have adult supervision. Like, like it's Neverland, really. And it's funny, my DM often says, like, it's the never ending story, but it's like, you know what? It's the never ending story of Neverland, really, if you think about it. It really is. But you can go into that, like, if you're choosing your twin flame journey, you could either go into that and go, this is horrible. I don't understand why they don't grow up. If I could do it, they can do it. Or you could be in a space of like, you know what? I'm going to be benevolently balanced throughout all of this because I know eventually they're going to come around. And like, that's all true, but you're also, even in that higher mind benevolent space, you're not fully being benevolent if you're not allowing yourself to experience all, like, not all, but like more of the infinite experiences of being human that there are. And so you could also be in a space of like, you know what? What's that term? If you can't beat them, join them, but not like that's a good example in its own. When most people think if you can't beat them, join them, it's like giving up. It's like, well, if y'all are going to be dicks, I'm going to be a dick too. But there's also other sides of that energy. It's like if you can't beat them, join them could also be, you know what? I can see that you're all being pirates. You're being dramatic. You're being selfish. You're doing all this, and I want to play, like not in a like a I want to play and I want to beat you, but like I want to play as in I want to understand that experience. I want to challenge my own shadows. I want to see if you're real about it. Are you real? Do you mean what you say? Are you really that scary? Are you really going to beat me up? Like, or, like you could go at it from a space of exploring your own stuff there and acknowledging, yeah, you could open a number of cans of worms in that, but I mean, there's nothing really to talk about in a life spent just sitting there being benevolent, not doing anything. Like I'm not judging that. Do that. Do that if you want to. But life is more interesting when we own, acknowledge, love, and trust all of who we are. And enlightenment itself, when you break it down to the most like oversimplified sense, is this like it's simply that you are conscious of the choices that you make when you choose them. Right? Like maybe you don't know all things and all stuff that's going to happen, but you're like, whatever comes out of this, I'm going to own it. It's learning lessons for me. It's showing my shadows and my light, and it's part of my journey. And like, you can go any direction about it. Even if you choose that, you're like, I'm just going to be love and light, and I'm going to work on my business, and I'm not going to worry about anybody else. You also take in the consequence that you're not taking action to correct any situations either. And usually that is good. Like we try to practice the release control, right? That's usually good. Though how many times have we also seen, especially politically, especially with racism and child abuse and like the Me Too stuff, like when somebody does not speak up, when somebody does not say that is unjust and I'm going to do something about it, if including if that means being a bit of a pirate myself, then the world suffers for that. Are you going to wait for somebody else to do that? You could. You could. You could manifest even. You could call in someone else to do it. But wouldn't your life story be more interesting if you took a risk here and there? And you were like, you know what? I know that I am a beautiful, benevolent being. I know that that includes shadow and light. And I know that typically when I get involved with anything good or bad, whether I am in my shadow and my light in a balance, it usually equals out as a good thing. And I know that, yeah, there's some selfishness in being the hero of it. There's like, there's certain things that you might have to do that would definitely not go on the only light, was it the only light work resume, I guess? I don't even know how you put it. Like it could get you to a space to where if you could have won some sort of award for being Gandhi or Mother Teresa, that you'd definitely be taken away. Like you risk the pride of that effectively. Like you're risking your pride. Like how do you want people to see you? Do you and that maybe that's a good theme to think about. I know the DMs are definitely in this energy, a fair amount of DXs, and like DFs we get there too is like, do you have to be liked by everybody? Do you have to have everybody seeing you in this image of this like divine angel that is always only ever doing good? Because if you do, you got some shadow work to do. Like, even if you still choose all benevolence and all balance and all good, and you're like perfectly in there later, if you cannot even stomach the idea of like somebody who does not like you, or you're not, let's put it this way, most of the time, if you have somebody who doesn't like you, most of us say just ignore them, right? But what if you changed your trajectory and you went into it like, okay, I'm probably not going to enjoy this conversation overly well because I know that they're likely misrepresenting me, or I've heard some things, or I don't like their energy. And typically, we teach ourselves to just like run away from conflict and those energies. What if you were to go into it in a space of like, I know that if I have a conversation with this person, it's going to shift the energy. I don't know how. I don't know what ways. I might get very, very hurt and then become squishy and dramatic or closed off or whatever thing. Or maybe there'll be a misunderstanding that was between us that either they knew about or that I could see that's in there that could at least bring a little more balance to this so that this person is happy living their own life and staying in their own fucking lane, like shit like that. Or maybe they could give you information that even if they're not connected to your twin flame, maybe they could provide you with some information. Maybe this person is like the pirates and karmics that your twin is lined up with. Maybe this could help you understand why they are staying stuck. Like with my DM, one of the things that I realize is like, if you got, okay, let's say you got 15 people around you, okay? One of them is good for you. And I'm not saying this is a like there's a lot of like, most people have multiple times of this, but let's say this is your scenario. You have one person who is genuine and mostly good for you, and they at least want the best for you. They're a good friend, good partner, whatever thing that they are to you, good sibling, thing like that. And then you got the other 14 people, and like let's say half of them, they don't necessarily say bad things about said person. They might not even know said person very much who's good for you, but they are fearful for you based on their own projections of past people who have hurt you and hurt them. So all that they talk to you about is not getting hurt again. Don't forget, you got hurt that time. You got hurt that time too. You remember that? So if this person is loving or really being good to you, you're more likely to get even more hurt if they hurt you, right? And then the other half of that 14. So we got, it's funny, we got the 1 and then 7 and 7. It's so funny. See how the tarot cards come to us in there? Now, the other half of them could be in a space of like more piratey stuff. Like, I don't care if they'll hurt you or not. In fact, the fact that they're so good to you makes me feel insecure. I don't want you around them. They make me feel like lesser of a person. Or that person will tattle on us because they're a good person and we don't want to do this or whatever number of things, or maybe some of them are like they're not as good as you think. I heard them doing this shadow thing, or they made this mistake, or they did this thing and didn't tell you. Like, if you have, you know what, let's make it 16 people. Let's say you have one other person somewhere among all of those people who is like kind of neutral, but they're impartial. They're impartial rather than neutral. And maybe you talk to them and they're like, well, it sounds to me like you already know in your heart that the one person is good, that they are telling you the truth, they are doing the best, and they're not likely to really hurt you all that much. And that these other people clearly, whether they are intentionally hurting you or not, they're draining you. They're saying they need you and they're not allowing you to be yourself and they're not allowing you to do this stuff. And they're all saying that the one person is good and or the one person is bad or at least dangerous because they're good, and even saying that me as the impartial person is not good because there's no side picked, it's just reality. Now if you are surrounded by 14 people who are throwing a combination of, even if they're good, you could get hurt more because of that anxiety at you, and the other side is doing this, I'm insecure and you'll hurt me if you allow yourself to have said good dynamic for you, or no, that person really is not good, then you've got a collective around you, especially if that collective is keeping you busy with their emergencies and affairs and pirating and weird fucking shit like that. even if you know that they're bullshitting most of the time, that becomes the voices that you often hear the most often. It gets into your head, right? It's that repeating, no, no, this and that, this and that, this and that. And the more people, like if you only heard two people saying, nah, that person's shitty and whatnot, but the rest of the people were like, no, they seem human. Like you would go for that data. Like that's a very natural human thing, psychologically speaking, even for a higher mind person. If you're getting in a lot of data from your collective, your, shorter knit collective, family, siblings, cousins, friends, family, exes, shit like that. Your collective, at least your starter one, right? If you're getting a lot of that same information that so and so is bad or so and so could hurt you more because they're so good and like better than you or something like that, or you'll hurt me if you are good to them kind of stuff, what do you think you're going to do? Right? You're going to feel bad because you feel like in order to follow your heart, you're going to hurt some people either by taking away your attention or your energy or having healthy boundaries with them. You're going to have other people you know are going to be intentionally dramatic because they're not getting the attention that they wanted or felt entitled to, or they don't like the person that you want to spend time with. And then there's going to be other people who are telling you, but you could get more hurt if you do that, And when those are the voices that you have around you, especially if, like, let's say, add on to that, you don't get to control the remote. So everybody's picking shows that are all about this same sort of drama, the same sort of experiences, the same sort of heartbreak, la la la, right? When you're getting all of that same information in, even like, in fact, the more sane you are, the more likely you are to feel like, at least for a while, you should maybe really examine what everybody is saying. Now, most people are not like, it's a spectrum between sanity and insanity, right? And like nobody hits either side most of the time. Um, but it's the same thing with like, you could be in a space to where you recognize you're placating, you're in codependent dynamics, you're choosing pirating or things to keep the peace, whatever it is. Now, where you can shift things is in looking at how are you thinking about the experience that you're having. Here's the key difference too. Are you a pirate, a pickle, or a potato, right? Pirate, potato, or pickle. Pickle is my representation of a human. You may not be the best, you're probably not the worst. You're kind of, you're a combination of many beautiful ingredients and factors that you would not think would go well when you put them together, but they do. Whereas potatoes are typically more followers on either side. They typically tend to follow pirates more often because they have this weird maladaptive coping mechanism that they'd at least rather have the craziest, meanest pirate person on their side if the world goes to shit. So they typically tend to lean towards the pirate side, but they don't always. A lot of them are more the passive aggressive sorts. They don't have a whole lot of like plans and ways to do things. They typically are kind of on repeat behavior cycles because they're in survival mode. And some of them can really look like pirates. Pirates to me are people that know what they're doing is inappropriate and wrong, but they do it anyways because it satisfies their ego. It satisfies their, how do you call it? It makes them feel less inferior. That's the best way I can think of it. Like they're in survival mode too, but it's some like they probably were told a lot growing up that they were bad people or they were deficient in some sort of feature that they felt like they would have in order to be successful, and it hit their self-love place, and they probably were raised by pirates who did that kind of shit to them. So like, pirates, potatoes, and pickles, right? Three P's. Now, a pirate and a potato would be much more likely to be in said situation, like to be in twin flame dynamic, and either be like, fuck y'all, I'm keeping my resources and I'm gonna just play with people because the world sucks and you hurt me first. Now, other pirates and then also potatoes would probably be in a victimy place. I never get a break. the world is picking on me, and you're just mean, and you did mean things too, so you can't talk to me about shit that I've done, that kind of shit. A pickle, however, might go, I could choose to be perfect, to try to be perfect, and to do all benevolent things, and to never participate in this. But since there's some time, and there's a little bit of work with the momentum and stuff, I could also decide that maybe I want to put on a pirate hat and see how it feels to be a pirate. And I'm going to go into it from a space of like, what can I learn from this? And that's where I get back to what I learned from my DM, and then like how you guys as fellow twin flames can go into your experiences in completely different ways than you have experienced them before, because it's like in the past I was the person that my DM is being. Like, even though I know they're full of shit, even though I know I deserve better, even though I know that if I was to put down all these hats and plates that I'm spinning to try to keep everyone happy, that could be very successful. And I could have fun and I could connect with people and I have a great time. But I can't because somebody might tell me I'm being a bad person. They might not like me. They might say, you should have stayed here to do this, or you should have been this way differently, or you should have kept quiet because, they were almost on their way out anyways, like that kind of stuff. And like, when I was in that space, like it totally seemed justified. And he was in that space of like being with me, be like, you can't keep doing this. This is crazy making, right? And I wouldn't hear it because it felt like my cause was noble and his was just codependent. But they were both, right? Now, what I set out to do was to understand things, right? To understand the flow of things, to understand him better, to understand myself better. And from being on both sides of that coin, when you have everybody telling you to do something, like we literally have had the experience of everybody from both sides of our families and friends and circles telling us to be dicks to each other, not necessarily because we've done anything wrong, but because other people have done things wrong, and the people that are telling us have not healed enough to recognize they're projecting and they're being negative Nellies and that they're being gossips and not even speaking well enough themselves, let alone anybody else. But we feel loyal to them, even if it's just like, you're my family, you're my person, you're my blah, blah, blah. But like, then it got to a point to where it's like, okay, I'm releasing a lot of this stuff and he's not. So what the fuck's going on right there? And then that was like, frustrating until I realized that I had actually been having the same experience as him, with the only difference being he jumped into a codependent relationship that got, that mixed in romance, failed business, failed like all this stuff. I did not go that direction. That's how I changed my loop, right? And it's funny because I've never quite been a serial monogamist in the way a lot of people have, but I definitely did get into it, like codependence and like disorganized attachment for a long time, anxious attachment, like it was a thing. Um, but now, like, I talk to a lot of people. Like, I've been openly sharing our story. And the thing is, a lot of people will get to this point to where they will wait. I feel like it's subconsciously until I talk about a more shadowy thing or a more bratty thing that he does, and then be like, "No, see, he's a total dick. I knew it, and you should totally fucking blah 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 blah." Or and then they go to this place of like, "Well, he just needs to put his balls back on." And I'm in a space to where it's like, I mean, I get where you're at in that space. I get that you're triggered and you found the one thing that you feel like you can hold on to make me hate him. But it's not going to get there because one, I don't choose for it to. Two, it's not going to get there because I also did those things. And for me to be mad at him about it, I would have to be equally as mad at myself. And instead, I would rather manifest the world that I want to be a part of by being the energy that I want to have in that world, which is a place where we are compassionate and we don't beat each other up over the head about things that we did when we were growing and learning and healing. And I would much rather look at it and go, okay, I see what's going on here because I went through the same thing. There's a lot of voices and a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of triggering, and they've been keeping him exhausted and caught up in all the codependent dynamics. And in the past, I saw that and went to a oh shit, I'm scared kind of place. I still get there sometimes. That was a recent one, but when you work through your fears and you release control even when you're afraid, and you keep your faith in the people, not just in their lights but in their shadows too, but in a kind, benevolent way, you get to a place where you can recognize there's far fewer emergencies that people have than there really are, and you can set your boundaries accordingly, because healthy boundaries should not be like a cemented brick in the ground. They really shouldn't. Like, look up what healthy boundaries are. They shouldn't. They should be flexible. That doesn't mean that you always flex them. Like, they should also not be like one of those clown balloons that you push and it falls over and comes back up. Like, no, that's not healthy either. Like, you want them to be pliant. You want to be able to move them should you feel like a moment is a good moment for you to, be more relaxed about that boundary. And if you have people that, you give them an inch, they take a mile, it's not like your original boundaries were good. Yes, you may need to have stronger boundaries with that person, but that is because they are being the way they are being, not because your boundaries were not strong enough in the first place. And then also acknowledge that people can grow, and a lot of times when you hold a healthy boundary for them, even if they fly off the handle for a minute and like really get reactive to it because they're not used to that, and whenever somebody communicated to them something before, it wasn't a boundary, as a punishment, like, give them the faith that they've just not had that experience before, and once they recognize that you're not going to do what happened, they're going to see you differently. Everything about your actions from that point on are going to be different. So, like, for the example of like using my DM in the situation that he's in, one, we met because the collective he was in drove him fucking crazy. And then he left to find new adventure, and guess who he runs right smack dab into? Me. And guess what I had been doing before I ran into him? I said fuck it to my own circus and shit, right? So I know that one, we have that consistent pattern. And that's typically a thing seen with twin flame relationships too, over time. It's over time. Yes, you might see it within a year or two, that kind of thing. That's how it started with us. But I mean, over time, right? It's consistent. Now, the other thing that I know is that he is conscious enough to be aware that the people that he is placating, most of them are projecting and the rest of them are full of shit. So he knows these things. So it's not a lack of awareness, it's heart, right? It's the same thing that people have been telling me, both about him and other people, that my heart is too big. But I find no irony in it that my twin's heart is also too big. And then I get back to a place of it's not too big, it's just big enough. The problem is everyone else is in Grinch mode trying to keep their hearts and their shoes too small. And that's not to blame everybody else. It's just it's a factual thing, right? And a lot of people are scared of genuine unconditional love. Like, they assume you have to have an agenda. You must want a relationship or money or sex or something. And no, you don't. In fact, healthy unconditional love is one of the hallmarks is that you don't require anything. There are no conditions. It is love without conditions. And love without conditions includes healthy boundaries, because if you're doing unconditional love and letting somebody treat you like shit, that's not unconditional love, that's toxic codependence. You know what I mean? Like, there are clear differences, but most people do not know the difference because they have not had anybody to model that around them. So, like, looking at my DM situation, knowing his heart, knowing everybody's hearts to a degree of different things going on, I know that he is going to be driven nuts by his own pirates, just as he was, just as he always has been, that I do not need to sit there and tell him what's going to happen. I do not need to tell him in fact, one of the things that has tortured him the most is how many people in from his own circus like to sit there and tell him what he's doing wrong and how he's going to do it more wrong. And then he has his own rebellious streak. So typically he does the very thing that you say he shouldn't do. And then they go, I told you so. And I am grateful for them for being that way, because it showed me how not to be. And I love being that person instead of like I used to be one of them too in doing it that way. But instead of being that way, now I am the person that's like, I just have faith that you're going to get there on your own, because I have lots of evidence that I've seen and gone through all of the memories and even double checked with everybody else. And you always end up making the righteous, healthy decision when you're ready to. Like, oftentimes you got to go through your own ego traps, but you know how many times that I had friends point that out to me that I was doing that to myself? So it's like, okay, I can have some humility for that, some grace, some empathy. Like, we all get there in our own ways. And that ends up coming back to my own self love. Like, in order to hate him, I'd have to hate me. In order to hate a lot of the pirates, I would have to hate myself. And I don't hate myself, and I'm not going to hate myself. So why would I hate them? I can also be in a place of having really big disgust for behaviors that humans get into, and be in a place where I recognize there are no all good or all bad people. Period. I don't care how messed up you feel. I don't care if you want to stay on the Isle of the Broken. I am not going to see you in that way because I choose not to, because it makes me feel like a better person, for one. Not better than you, but better than who I was. And two, it like we need more people who are in a realistically whole place rather than either everything is shitty and life sucks or everything is always good and there's never any problems. Like, you want the balance in the middle. That's what makes healthy humanness, right? So in knowing that this stuff is going on, I can be in a place of like humor about it, like gracefulness about it. Like, not, haha, I'm making fun of you humor, but like, I'll look at your humanness. Like, look at the adorableness of that humanness, which is much more how I'd prefer for somebody to look at it when I'm having human moments rather than being like, you're unstable or you're doing this thing or you're mean because you're holding healthy boundaries with me, that people are like, look at her trying to grow. Like, that's good. That's really good. It's like, it's messy sometimes, but it's getting there, and that's good. Like, that's the kind of people that I have space for in my life right now. And I have some. They're really, really great, you know? And I like being that person for other people, even people that I may not know that well, or I may not know all their stories and shit. Like, it's definitely helped me level up and helped me feel better and helped me achieve more in my personal life to be the kind of person that's like, you know what? I enjoy people's humanness. And to be in a place too to where I can have my feelings regardless of how anybody else feels about it. I feel like this is a message for both, well, for DMDF and DX, but it feels like it's more centered around feminine energy right now, the divine feminine energy. And it's one of those, like, if you're choosing a twin flame journey, especially if you believe that your twin is somebody who is entangled in a third party relationship or a higher commitment, marriage, anything like that, you got to own that shit. I was gonna say, you gotta own that shit, bitch. Like, I don't know, that doesn't seem quite appropriate, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm not necessarily saying that you need to like go out and put a banner up or anything, but look at the acknowledgement of it. Like, if you would not talk about the fact that you are in love or have hopeful future considerations for union or relationship with somebody who is married or in a third party or who does not, who their shadow sides are showing right now, if you don't feel comfortable going, you know what, I find all of that adorable. I know that, like, maybe it's an unpopular thing for mainstream society, but I love it. If you can't do that, then that actually reflects that you are not in union with you. Because the truth is, whether that's the ideal situation or not, your heart wants what your heart wants. And if you're in a place to where you're like, I can't tell people about it, my mom would be freaked out, or their family would be freaked out, or to talk about it, people might think I'm making a move on them or something like that. Like, if you're allowing the collective to determine who you are able to have feelings for, you're being a hypocrite. You're also being in a fear space over being in a love space. And this is very commonly what tends to create more delays for twin flame dynamics. Not even twin flame dynamics. It can delay you a lot in any sort of happy, romantic, platonic, familial relationships. Like, you are not free to enjoy standing in your power and just delighting in universal divine timing and flow until you are happy with who you are. So you got to kind of get to this place to where, like, you know what, if you're looking at your twin flame and they're in a bunch of tangles, and you're like ask yourself this question: if they never got out of those situations, if they remained sort of a player, sort of an overly loyal type, immature, stuff like that, would you ever again give them another opportunity to be with you, knowing that they would be, at least in a psychological, rational way, very likely to continue being all the ways that they have been? Would you still sign up for it? Would you, like, if nothing was likely to change other than, like, maybe for some of you, like, let's look at it this way: if you were able to get back in a relationship with them or start a new relationship with them and they still maintained all of those shadowy ways and they never grew, would you say yes? And two, let's say that the other dynamic is that part of how they never change is that either you are always the third party, or that there is at least always a third party or several in there. Can you love yourself through that and love them and openly, like, go to picnics and barbecues and be like, yeah, my dude's such a slut? You know what I mean? Like, you're like, can you be like, oh yeah, like, he'll never own that he's totally a player, but he is, and they might look at you with shock and awe, and be like, what? He's done all this stuff to you and you're doing all this, and, like, how are you happy? Like, once they get past the notion that you're ignorant to it, and once they get past the space of, like, you don't mind that, yeah, you're doing a little pirating yourself, then it's like they get to that place of, well, you deserve better. And it's like, yeah, I do. And I totally could have that, but I'm enjoying this right now. Like, can you do that? Can you do that with your person? Like, looking at all of their proclivities and their shadows and their lights, like, is there light enough for you on that? Can you have a relationship with them if they were available to one, to where you never ask them to change a damn thing? And can you stay in that space to where you have faith also that they are always likely, that you look for the evidence that they are always changing, so that you never feel like, oh my gosh, if they're doing this thing, it's going to create chaos over here and then make me unstable? Like, can you be with them as they are, as they have been? If they were never to change, can you still consistently, in a healthy, balanced way, be in a space where you're like, I know, you know what? That may be slower right now, but time is a construct that we made up anyways. So they're going at just the pace that is right for them, and I am comfortable moving along either next to them or sometimes running up ahead on the path and then coming back a few times because I can go faster or slower or things like that. Like, can you enjoy the humanness of it? Can you stay in a place of faith to where you don't have to wait for them, but you also don't have to abandon them? Can you be in a space where you're like, yeah, yeah, this probably, like, there'll probably be a fair amount of people that are be like, I think that you are not choosing the healthiest things and you're exploring your shadows, and I think you're a bad person for that. But you know what? Most of those people, whether they're close to you, whether they're relevant to your life or anything, they're also likely to be projecting, first of all. And second of all, it's really unhealthy to expect any human being to always be doing the right thing. And on top of that, most people just don't know what to do with somebody who is like, and I know this from personal experience, somebody who is like, no, I know the shadows and I choose to think about it in a different way. I choose to engage with it. I choose to be in my own space about it. I choose to not control it, but to also make sure that I am always in control of myself. Like, I don't have to participate in the parts of it that I know are immoral. I don't have to participate in the parts of it that where they, like, somebody else might want me to get dramatic to try to take me out or something like that. Like, I have self-discipline. I have the ability to say, I'm going to play with this part and not with that part. I have the consciousness to say, you know what? I do deserve better, and I'm getting better, and things are coming around from all sorts of places, and I still want to be part of the story of this stuff. You know what I mean? And I can look at my DM. I think this is the thing that kind of amuses me at this point, because there was a lot of stuff that we never talked about with our relationship, not because either one of us thought it was wrong, but because a lot of other people are not in a self loving, self confident place where they can experience somebody else being in that space and not feel either butthurt about it or jealous about it. So we didn't talk about it, you know? And now it's like part of the thing that held me back for so much in my just in my own personal individual journey was that codependent, like, I don't want to talk about it because somebody might not like me, or somebody might twist my words and turn it into other shit. And then when we get to the people that check in with me and see, oh no, honey, I'm very well aware of what I'm doing and the potential consequences it could have. And I did the things that I did consciously and aware of the potentials that it might have. And then at that point, like, you're going to have some of those people that are like, wow, that's really brave. And I'm glad that I can give myself permission to be human now too. And you're going to have other people who just feel triggered because they feel like they could never allow themselves to have that sort of permission to be them sort of selves or to love somebody, to openly, like, I have yet to meet anybody in any freaking relationship where they could say, yeah, my partner is perfect and they never do anything wrong. No, they just don't talk about the other shit. They don't talk about the annoying, bratty moments. They don't talk about how they don't fix this or they leave laundry out over there. Like, and funny thing is, we vent about it too, but then it's like, no, 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 but they're perfectly. We don't talk about the other stuff. No, in this generation, in this day and age, with how we've been, us colonizers and everything like that, no, no. I'm sorry. If you ever try to tell me that you want a perfect relationship or you have a perfect relationship, I know that you are far more full of shit than the people that I knew were full of shit when they started talking. You know what I mean? Like, that's a reality thing. So, you, my fellow twin flames, first of all, thank you for listening this far into this video. This is hilarious. I've always timed myself before and been like, don't go too long. But now it's like, no, fuck it. I'm just going to go. If some of you like it, it's great. If you don't listen. Or listen in pieces, listen in chunks, whatever. But, like, look, look at it objectively, though. If you can't accept and feel good, like, I mean, fucking grateful as fuck for everything you have as it is, then just speaking in terms of the metaphysical sciences of manifestation, and then even like the empirical sciences of manifestation, when you're experiencing lack, you're manifesting lack. And it is a very strong vibration right now, especially with consumer societies and things like that, and all the fear and everything else going on. Like, if you are not happy with what you have exactly as it is, you're more likely, especially if you're not retrained your ego, you're more likely to continue to focus on what you feel like you do not have. Like, when we talk about we are missing someone, we're missing our twins, think about the direct metaphor in that. You feel like a piece of you is missing. But here's the thing, like, a lot of people talk about twin flames like you are two halves of a soul, but that's not actually true. Now, if you want to go for like the whole myth and stuff, yeah, yeah, as you split one soul in half, blah blah blah, red string. Like, I like it; it's romantic, but it's not pragmatic, it's not realistic, and it won't get you what you want. So, you decide: do you want the fantasy or do you want the reality? You know what I mean? Do you want the thing you really want, or you want to sit around for years pining over the thing that you want? That's where I get to it. Okay, now when you can get to a space to where you love your story with all its absurdities, all its shadows, all its lights, and all those things, and you can talk about it, and you can, like, you don't need to fight other people. You don't need to be explaining yourself. You don't need to be doing any of that stuff to where you can just comfortably own your story as it is, your own pirating, your own potatoing, and how you are most definitely a pickle. That brings you more, like, that brings you what you want because you then are in a vibration of abundance. When you feel like nothing is missing and nothing is lacking, which I believe is like, I know a lot of readers say that. I think Abraham started that, but it might have been someone else. Nothing missing, nothing lacking. Like, when you can get into that space without being like, oh my gosh, if my mom doesn't like it, I can't talk to her again. No, let her not like it. Let her be responsible for her fucking feelings for once, right? Do it. Just let it. Like, you don't have to be a jerk about it. Just don't, like, you don't have to engage in those conversations. And if she's the type that is judgy or tells you about yourself, you could be like, Mama, I'm not going to listen to this anymore. That's very judgmental of you. It's a lot of resent, or you're holding in a lot of bitterness, and I am not. So I'm not going to sit down for these conversations. You want to talk about philosophy, the books, the stars, what you want for your birthday? We could go there. I'm happy to have that conversation with you, Mama. But I'm not going to go to this place where you're going to tell me about myself. You know, I'm not going to go to this place where you're going to tell me about everybody else. If you're me, then you also go, and if you continue that, I will tell you about yourself, just the way that you do it, the energy that you have it in. But I will actually do it in a benevolent way because that's who I am, because I know who I am, which is why I do not need you to try to knock me out of knowing who I am by telling me who you're projecting that I am. And you can take that sort of same thing with any friends, any, like, even your twin. Even if that's your twin, you gotta say that to your twin, honey. You say that to your twin and have faith that they can handle it. That if you're actually being honest with them about it, they're gonna be like, damn. You know, like that was real. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't none of that. It was just real. And I needed to hear that shit. And nobody else says it like that. And then it like just manages themselves. You know what I mean? So there's another key for some of you that either listen this far or get this far. And like, you know, you want something to be able to shift with your twins. Sometimes you're going to have, you know, you're going to have a twin flame dynamic that is codependent or was codependent or has codependent elements in it. And you're going to have to get good at being able to communicate your boundaries without ever being like, I'm done with you, or I don't love you, or I'm better than you. Why would I focus on you kind of shit, to where you can communicate, I love you, and I'm holding healthy boundaries because I see that we're not aligned in a space where it's time for us to be in 3D union. So I'm not pursuing you. I'm working on me in the meantime. And I've no intention, like if you're happy in where you're at and you're enjoying stuff with pirates and karmics and potatoes, I'm gonna love you over here anyways. I'm gonna love you from afar and be like, you're adorable. Like, I don't know why you want to go through the labyrinth like that, but whatever. Like, it's part of what makes your story more interesting and my story more interesting, and I love it. I'm a, you know, and I could talk about it with anybody I want. I can hold my own in my own spaces. I can recognize their projections. I can be happy with all of it as it is. And when you get to that space, your communication changes with people. And then the more you work stuff out with your mama, the more stuff you work stuff out with your dad, the more you work stuff out with your grandparents, the more you work stuff out with community members. But guess what? The better you get at the kinds of communication that you need to often work with a twin flame who is like, they're in their dark night of the shadow. I don't know why I was gonna say it that way. Dark night of the soul, or they're deeply in their ego, and it seems in the 3D like you're off timing, even though you're not. But like they can be totally there, and you can still communicate to them just fine. And like you can tell them about themselves without telling them about themselves like everybody else does. You can be in a place where you see that everybody's always telling them about themselves. You know how many people, like most of us have a team of fucking people between our families and our friends telling us about the shit we did that fucked up. Do you really need to be another person saying that to your twin? Like, I almost want to be like really? Do you need to be the one who's like, I told you so? Do you need to be the one that's like, if you do this, you'll get hurt? They already have enough people fucking doing that. You have enough people doing that. Why don't you be the person for them that you want them to be for you? But don't do it in a transactional way that, like, I'm only going to give you my love and my light if you're giving back to me your love and your light. No, why don't you enjoy the space of, like, okay, they're really being egoic and they really believe these misrepresentations. And I know they're surrounded by pirates and they're also being very selfish and dickish and stuff. So, like, I mean, I could just ignore it. I could do like pirates and punish them. But instead, I'm going to enjoy looking at the lessons I can learn about having grace for myself because, yeah, sometimes I want to say some things. Yeah, sometimes I want to join in and be like, you know what? Y'all can suck on a hairy carrot. You know, like, but instead, how about I look at my triggers with deception. I look at my triggers about other people doing stuff. I look at my triggers about not speaking up when I feel like I should and speaking up when I feel like I shouldn't, you know, and I'm going to look at that and I'm going to enjoy loving the shit out of everybody throughout all of this because one, it's the thing that nobody else is likely going to do, so that makes it more fun. Two, it makes me feel like I am a good person in alignment with my own moral compass. And three, why not? You know, do you have to go about it the way that everybody else tells you to go about it? And my favorite too, some of the like the wisest advice that has come from most everybody, the wisest people I've talked to that have been in every arena, political, spiritual, all this, and then also the least experienced and probably the people you should listen to the least. Like everybody has the same advice in almost every I wanted to say every relationship situation, but goodness sakes, it's almost like every situation, period, which is do it as best for you. Or, and in my case, because I have children, do it as best for me and my children. But it's like, let's look at the example, right? What's best for me is my own happiness. It's enjoying myself. It's choosing what I want, whether or not anyone else likes it. If I want my twin flame, if I want friendship with him, if I want that stuff, like I'm not saying that I have to get it. I'm not saying that anybody has to give it to me. But if we're talking about what's best for me, what's best for me is that I'm able to be independent and enjoy my life, and I get what I want that makes me happy. And what makes me happy is having a friendship with my twin flame, and or more than that. What makes me happy is having a healthy, easy co-parenting dynamic with him. That's what's best for me. What's best for me is not holding on to a bunch of pirates' dirty secrets on his end that I had no allegiances to in the first place, and only kept my mouth shut because they were bullies and because I was worried they were going to continue to bully my person. What's best for me is to be able to talk about it. What's best for me is to be able to be in a space of loving everybody anyways. What's best for me is to be in a space to where I could say, you know what, I'm going to talk about my story. I'm going to decide how I want to own it. I'm going to talk to the people that are like, you shouldn't feel good about that. I'm going to be like, why not? Don't you feel good when when you eat Oreos? Like, that's not good for you either. Like, not in any way. Do you even know what half the ingredients are in there? You know what I mean? Like, you want to talk about it? Like, what's best for me is to not deny that I have shadows too. What's best for me is to know that I am protecting my kids and doing what's best for me and also doing what's best for my DM. But that's what's best for me. And a lot of times what is best for me may not like I'm never going to be the kind of person that what's best for me is going to hurt somebody else, but they might see it that way. Like the person that he's with, like I'm not even trying to take the relationship, but if I was, like one, it'd be within my lane. We are still common law married, and then on top of that, she was trying to work her way in before we were even broken up. She was one of the reasons that we decided to go for separation. So it would be totally in my fucking lane to be in that space if I wanted to. And I've talked to lots of people about this. It would be. Lots of people encouraged me to go that way. And I said, no, because I don't call for separations and just to fuck with people. I don't. At least of all my twin. But it's one of those things to where it's like, I would much rather be who I am in this moment and say, I know that he's got things he wants to learn. And I would much rather be in a place of, you know what? I'm going to love myself for how I feel about it. Because, yeah, a lot of the world is going to be like, you shouldn't, like, they're going to try to convince you that it might hurt you to love other people without the transactions. And the thing is, that might be true if you are emotionally unstable or really insecure. But when you are emotionally secure and you're emotionally stable, no, it doesn't. It doesn't hurt you to love. Love is not hurting you. People have shadowy behaviors and negative behaviors that can hurt you, and sometimes that can come from people that you really love. But to love somebody that is in a socially awkward or inappropriate situation is not going to hurt you unless you allow yourself to feel hurt by the fact that other people feel hurt by that. And here's the thing though, part of the reason our world is in the messed up, out of balance place that it is because we typically have pirates on both sides. But there's one side going, we're going to be bad because we're bad and the rest of the world is screwed up and we're victims anyways. And then you get the other side that's like, we are going to be only good. Only good. Like, it's very black and white. It's very splitty. And you can do that. Like, you're also a part. Like, all these people are a part of the whole and they're relevant. But if you are here listening to me jabber on about this stuff, then maybe it's time to stop and think, you don't have to be either of those. You can acknowledge that you have some feelings for somebody that is not exactly in the typically socially acceptable range of characteristics, but it doesn't necessarily make them bad. It depends on what you think. Like if you're very judgy and you're like, it has to be specifically 9 to 5 jobs and only monogamous relationships. And I mean, yeah, cheating occurs because everybody fucking does that, but that's the way it's gonna go. And you have to be in some kind of mainstream religion and mainstream school and have a high school diploma, blah 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 blah. Like, if you want to be a really judgmental person like that, I mean, personally, when I've been in judgmental energy like that, it doesn't feel good to me or anybody else. So you want to be there, by all means, but maybe try to take it to a place where you feel good about it. Okay? Yeah, in your heart, in your fantasy, you may want there to be like this fairy tale ever after sort of thing where it just all works out, and then at some point the story ends because you never do anything wrong again, and you never have any quests, and they never have any bad days, and you never have any bad days. If you really want like the rest of your life to be that simple, okay, but most humans are not built in with the ability to actually handle a life that has no problems and has no growth opportunities. We get bored because contrast stimulates growth. So either you have to be intentional about setting up activities and things that are beneficial for your growth so that you can continue to grow, or you leave yourself susceptible to the contrast that life brings to you. Like me doing these videos, like starting these out early on, it really helped me with my anxious attachment. And it built a place to where I could explore other communities, where I could explore tarot and a little more deeply in new ways. Same thing with astrology, into where I could talk about things and not to worry about it. So, like in the now moments when things in the 3D may be very like piratey and potatoey, I'm not in a space to where I was, to where I'm like freaked out or unstable or concerned about the now stuff. And then it's more about like, do I want to hide forever the kind of person that I am just so that the people who didn't really like me in the first place might keep pretending to be nice to me while stabbing me in the back? Or do I want to own who I am and see which of the people that I know or might run into are like, that's cool? Like, I would rather go for the second, personally. That's something that a conversation that I'd had with my DM in the past, too. It's like, I don't care if everybody's telling me that I should not like you or I should be harder with you. I'm never going to do that because they're stupid. No, I don't mean they're stupid, but it's like they're projecting. Why would I listen to people I know are projecting? Like if they were not projecting, they would actually, one, they'd be okay with other people doing things that are not necessarily hurting them, and going forward with it, and two, they would speak up when people are actually doing things that are hurting them and or other people. So like, why would I listen to somebody that's such contradictory bullshit going on over my own heart, and just being a live it out loud sort of person, which we really got into too, like especially when we started couples therapy. Like we really got into living out loud more, and that was some of my most favorite moments with him, when like he would talk about a lot of the different stuff that we always found exciting, but he didn't want to talk about it because he thought his family might look down on him about it, or other people, like society, might be like, "Ooh, that's not normal," or "Oh, that's an unknown, and that makes me uncomfortable," or "Oh, that doesn't fit into Catholicism, or that doesn't fit into Presbyterianism, or that doesn't fit into paganism, or that doesn't fit into Buddhism." And, somebody might care. Somebody might be like, "Hey, I don't like that." And then you got to sit there and go, well, I do, so it's tough shit that you don't. Like, but most of us don't go there. We go to a place, oh shit, somebody else doesn't like me, or they don't like my person, that's making my person feel weird. I got to do something. No, you don't. No, you don't. Like, love yourself. Love yourself through it. Now, I'm just going to keep going because this is fun. I don't have a whole ton of battery life, though, so whenever this ends, since nobody's really chatting anyways, is whenever it ends. So let's get into the what's going on with DM DFDX. I'm going to talk about DM and DF because it's a little bit easier for me right now, and I'm being selfish. But I want you, like, if you're feeling like you're a DX, which is more of a hybrid, it's both out of the binary and hybriding of the binary. Acknowledge that like you both have a choice and no choice in being, DM, DF, DX. But the choice you mainly have is that if you're accepting a journey, whether twin flame or otherwise, that is out of the norm, you're going to have times when you're going to feel excluded, either because it's easier for the other people not to say it or not to do it or things like that. You might feel unseen. That's a part of the journey that you're manifesting in doing that. You can either love it or you can allow it to lower your vibration. It's your choice. And I'm not saying you should not advocate for more people to speak you into existence too. I'm just saying for your own personal space, this is a thing that will come up for you again and again and again until you are unbothered by it. Not until you're armored away from it, until you're not bothered by it, until you can alchemize that and be like, oh cool, there's a space here that I can be like, hey, me too. I'm over here too. So what I'm sensing with this delicious Scorpio energy, a lot of divine feminines are in a space to where we're owning our stuff. We're owning our stories. We're like, this is me and I love me. It's not even like this is me and you don't have to like it. No, it's like this is me and I love me. Like that's what I get off the DF energy. Like there's light, there's shadow, there's dark, there's up, there's down, there's cross quarters, there's magic and non-magic and like all the things, right? And then for divine masculine energy, I feel like it's see the hard part to discern is like the knowing that I know that a lot of them seem out of sync with us, but they're not. And part of that is because time is not actually linear, but we have manifested calendars and clocks and things like that. So both are true. Like both are true. So what it feels like right now is that divine masculines are kind of in the shadow of that energy that divine feminines are in. Okay, so like if you have a divine feminine who is going all light, right? I am all good. I am in my fucking laneth and I'm not doing things that are bothering other people, then divine masculines are in this energy of like full, what do you call it? Not shadow, but like the dark night of soul, like going the totally opposite way, like polar opposite sort of shit. Like, no, I'm bad and I don't care that you don't like it. Like that sort of thing. Um, whereas like for like let's say DFs who are like more in a balanced place, like I'm not all good. I'm certainly not all good. And you know what? Maybe I've spent so much time in the light that people have forgotten that I am human. and the only reason that they think that is because I've been so hyper vigilant, like I had to stick up my own butt that I never did anything that was human. Maybe I could play with that, and I'm going to delight with my shadows rather than hide from them or never allow them to come out. And I'm going to find healthy ways to allow my own shadows to be out and about without hurting other people, but also without being responsible for how other people feel. For you, you're actually changing and shifting things around to where if you had been mostly in the light, or even if you'd been mostly in the dark, and your twin flame was in the opposite of that, like when you're being super shadowy, they're being super good, and when you're being super good, they're being super shadowy. Like when you go towards the center, you go towards union with yourself and you go towards balance. So guess what? The the awkward but equal opposite reaction is from your twin, who always reflects you much more so than anyone else. They're going to go towards balance too. And the irony is it is both because that's who they are and they would choose to do that and that's how you should see them and not necessarily wait for somebody like me to tell you that they're like that. You should know that about them. And also because of the twin flame connection. Like there is always a push pull dynamic. It is not always a push pull as in relationship games, but there is always an energy of a pushing and a pulling and a uniting and a separating and things like that. It's always, those things do exist in there. It's just not everything's about relationship, honey. Like your twin flame journey is about you. Like that's like it's about you. It's about light. It's about shadow. It's about adventure. The relationship, the union with An actual other person, whether you're twin or otherwise, is just a fucking bonus. It is the cherry on top. I know it's the thing that we mostly always talk about, but really, it's the cherry on top. It's the carrot at the end of the stick that gets you to where you wanted to go. You know what I mean? Like, spirit's using whatever it's gotta. Like, all right, honey, you want this one? I'm going to lead you through, like, the bog of eternal stench and all of the labyrinth maze by dangling this person in front of you to get you fucking to the heart of Goblin City. You know, like, that's really what it is, right? Now, just because you know how to shift energy, just because you can play with these things and have comfort in those spaces if you do feel comfort in them, that doesn't mean that like you're just going to necessarily wave your magic wand or turn on a light switch and everything's going to be all hunky dory. But it does mean that you can be the author of chapters of your story and you get to decide, am I going to be all depressed and victim consciousness and feeling like my soul's being ripped from my body because I don't have my person giving me the kind of 3D attention I know that I deserve, but that I feel like I can't love myself if I don't get it? Or are you maybe going to be in a different space of being like, you know what? I'm going to enjoy me time. I'm enjoying my light and my shadow. I'm going to observe how other people respond to that. I'm going to love out loud if I want to. I'm going to love my DM out loud while completely respecting everything that he wants to choose and have in his life. Like, and I'm going to be me. Like, a lot of DS are in that space. And here's the thing, a lot of twin flame dynamics stay separated because both of y'all are in a place of, I can't really own who I am or how I am because other people might not like it, and then I might not love myself as much. It's very common. Very common. Okay? When you shift your energy, which it feels like you are, you're getting yourself into a space where, well, where you're accepting of yourself and then you come into union with yourself. And that's when you give example, not just to your twin, but to everyone around you of how to love yourself and your own journey and feel whole instead of broken. And I feel like this is a combination of, this is already happening. This is an acknowledgement. You may already be doing this. You may see other people doing this. You may have been inspired by somebody else doing this. Or you may come to this message here and then become aware of it and inspired to do it. But, it's still there. So it's also partly suggestion. Like, own your shadows. Own your BS. Own your story. Own who you love and why you love them. Own your messy situations or not messy situations. Own your empty social life. Own your too full social life. Like, take this Scorpio energy and learn to love your shadows too. Be a balanced human being rather than a Stepford wife or a robot. And get into consistently practicing it. You're not going to do this one day and feel fucking great about it the next day every time. I mean, you might, it depends on where you are, but like where you are in healing mode. But, it takes a minimum of 21 days to be able to officially say you have consistently built a new good habit and or removed and released an old bad habit. A minimum of 21 days. The irony is 21 days is not that long. And then on top of that, like, you have a lot of 20. That's only 3 weeks. Do you know how many 3 weeks you have in a year? You know what I mean? And once you get some momentum down and you get some of the things out of the way that were not your shadows to own, but maybe you carried them for others or things like that, then you can really get down to your shadows. And then you can go, do I care what other people think about me loving this person or liking this job or living my lifestyle this way? If I really don't, then I'm going to live authentically and show that I am not bothered by anyone not liking my thing or not liking me because I don't need everyone to like me. And when you get into that energy, Divine Feminine, the ripple effects go out into the rest of the world and all the people you interact with, all the readings you give, all the talks you have, all the group things you do, they all begin to shift. And then the universe starts to show you what you can shift towards, or what you could plant seeds for at the next new moon, and what you can expect to reap from what you sowed of the full moon coming in, And then you start to become a little more relaxed about time, distance, communication, 3D shit. You know what I mean? And the more you're comfortable with that, because you chose your twin flame journey, the more you help other people become comfortable with themselves, often on the twin flame journey, and to say, you know what, I am deserving of loving myself at least as much as I love other people. And I am deserving of having my ridiculous story if I want it, and changing it when I want to, how I want to, and healing in a manner of my own choosing and pace and time, and having my own feelings, whether it upsets somebody else or not. You know what I mean? When you get into that space, you help create real healing ripple effects. And this is collective reading here. You can look at other people's readings. I've not looked at them. I've not seen anyone talking about this stuff. But I know if I was to go and look, I'm not going to be the only one talking about this, honey. Like, there's going to be multiple people. It's a collective thing that we are all, to some degree, experiencing on some level, in some timeline, in some pocket world, in some dimension, or will at some time, right? So, as I end this because I have to pee, I'm going to say this: look for your shadows. Learn to embrace your darkness in benevolent ways, that ickiness, malevolence, stuff like that, things, disharmonies. And learn to love your story. And then love the people that you were afraid would have a problem with it anyways, because really if they have a problem with an element of it, it's because they're projecting a problem they have with themselves. Love them through it, love yourself through it, and also have healthy boundaries. I'm going to leave this here, so I love you beautiful souls, and I'll see you in the next video.